So hi folks, once again, good evening and you're very welcome along to another program, to another edition of Down Your Way. What a special one, yes, a real special one this week. I'm with the miners in the Cons and Ballingarry. Come on, let's hear it.
With whiskers on his chin. He died from kidding any goats on the slopes of Slievenamon, and now his whiskers hanging in round his elbow on, and he's late for the session on the crack on Sunday night, and when he pulls his baton out, sure it is a lovely sight. He hammers on the side of it, and he hammers on the skin, but when he takes the jigging, sure he makes a right out in. Now he played with all the famous names, Joe Burke and Paddy O'Brien. He played with Bobby Gardner, and he played with Patrick Lyons. He then went off to Flanaharan up in Sligo town, and when the people heard them play, they came from miles around. Now the Yanks, they were dumbfounded when they heard O'Roundy play. It's awesome, man, it's awesome. That's all that they could say. But the Australians went one better. They said good day to you. We'd like to make you roundy, sir, and on about kangaroo. And he took for the session at the crack on Sunday night. And when he pulls his baton out, sure it is a lovely sight. He hammers on the side of it, and he hammers on the skin. But when he takes the jigging, sure he makes a right out in. Now the Pope, he came to Ireland. He said, I want to see some good old Irish music like I saw on RTE. So they sent a car for Roundy with a chauffeur at the wheel. And when the Pope heard Roundy play, he began to dance a reel. And he takes it for the session at the crack on Sunday night. And when he pulls his baton out, sure it is a lovely sight. He hammers on the side of it, and he hammers on the skin. But when he takes the jigging, sure, he makes a right out in. Diddly da 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 dum diddly da 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 dum diddly da 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 diddly da 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 da. And when he takes a jigging, sure, he makes a right old din.
Well done, Roundy.
How are you?
I'm fine, Eamon, fine.
This is a special night, and indeed you have it all being such a professional outcome on camera.
I'm not that professional, but I mean, the rights of Roundy Law was a legend. In his own time, he was a legend. And it was my pleasure to be his friend all these years. And he was a fantastic guy.
Isn't it great to come along like this today and to be able to record some stuff like what you've recorded for the last 2 days?
Well, it's been recorded for posterity, and it'll be here in the Mines Museum forevermore.
Yeah.
And that's all the miners will end up here. And if we get them all interviewed like you're doing, we'll have no problem.
Yeah, it would be great to get them all together for an evening or whatever, but look, we had the great story there from Dennis and the insights.
This is another legend, really.
Yeah.
The characters that worked in that mine, you could write a book and make a film of it.
Yeah.
And every one of them were characters in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't call myself a miner. I was only 6-7 years old.
What would people say today? Would people go down like that today and work like that in the times we're living in today?
And I'll tell you, St. Colin Kill made a prophecy back in the 13th century. He said in the future it would take 10 men to pull one bouclon. That's a weed, in case you don't know what it is, being a chisel man. A bouclon, and that's what's going to happen. Men are going to get so weak that they won't be able to pull a weed. Because, I mean, for instance, you don't have to get off your backside to change the channel on the television, do you?
Really but it's like everything, I suppose, communication and everything is high-tech and well advanced.
Well, I suppose it is. My little grandson now, Kian, I'm teaching him the computer and the camera. Please God, he'll make his living at that.
Absolutely. This is a special night for the community, certainly.
Oh, it's a special night, especially for Margaret O'Brien. She's a fantastic person, and all the people around here. I mean, I'm a Limerick man, but I'm 42 years in Killenaw. But to help these people and what they've done here is a miracle. When you see the old school and the pictures of the old school, what they've turned it into is just a complete miracle.
Absolutely, and did Margaret do that magnificent job.
Oh, Margaret, and all the rest of them.
And of course the whole committee, of course.
Michael Kavanagh, not to mention but a few.
Absolutely.
But I help them as best I can in any way I can.
We're up here in the museum, we're just up here now, bit of memorabilia. I know we haven't time to take it on, but it's a story for anyone who wants to come down here to the old school and have a look around to see how people survived and lived all those years ago.
They wouldn't believe it. They wouldn't believe the conditions, for instance, number one. I mean, you took up the vein of coal was 18 inches. And when you went up so high, you took a sheet of galvanized up with you. And you knocked the coal onto that, and you ran down the sheet of galvanized into a tub at the bottom. When the tub was full then, that was one tub for your wages.
And it was Roundy Law all his lifetime, this is his life too.
Oh, Roundy, you see, down the mine, everybody was a joker. You had to be a joker, you had to be. You know, I mean, if you started to think what was over your head, one particular man, if you cursed, he'd say, God, men, remember what's over your head. And that was the great John Hammond, the wit they called him.
Yeah.
And that's what he used to say. God, men, remember what's over your head.
Well, yeah, no, we're telling you time, every success. Thanks for being here tonight and be very much back.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you very much.
What will be your main task this morning?
To produce the coal and sell it for our wages and to prove to the government that this mine is viable.
There were roads in it nearly 2 miles long, in under the ground. And when you go off in there, I mean, if anything happened in there, like, there'd be no way out of really, you know. But there was no easy jobs in the mine. We didn't think about the darkness very much. But we went in there with a small light carbide lamp at the time. I had a bit of fear in there for a few days. I'd say the first couple of weeks I had a fear, because when pieces of ceiling would fall, which I wasn't used to happening, I would jump. No, truthfully, and that was fear. But the temptation was you were going to get money, and that was something you weren't used to.
Miners were paid based on how much coal they dug out. The work was grueling, but there were rewards at the end of the week.
My first pay packet, I'll always remember, a big £10 note. I said to myself, will I ever be able to spend this? We thought we were millionaires. So that was the attraction for a lot of the young fellas who had the money. When you were young, you wouldn't be thinking that your head sort of, you know, it's only later on in life that you get to realise like what damage you're doing to yourself.
I was as proud as a peacock going on home my bike and my first wages, £2. So I handed it to my mother, not even opened. I didn't even look at the pay sheet, check nothing. So she handed me 2 shillings. So I used to keep that and I'd have that in the breast pocket going to Coma. Then we were going into town, into the coal mine lounge it was, where we started drinking first. I wasn't even 15 and I was drinking. We'd go to the dances. We were going to the dances and your eyes blackened and black under your nails and you did a relation with yourself and your bat's key down in your breast pocket to let everybody know, yeah, you're a miner now.
The coal had to be cut and shovelled out by hand. It was labour intensive and employing hundreds of men. Mining brought relative prosperity to rural areas.
There was up to 600 men working here. Just imagine a small town like Castlecomer. Sure, just kept the shops and everything going then. Through the backbone of the area.
The young boys had to learn fast and relied on the older miners' experience.
It was a happy old job to work in. I mean, the camaraderie in it was brilliant, like, you know. Because everybody looked out for everybody, you know. You were dependent on those people to help you because you didn't have the strength that you would need it. We looked on those people as like second father to us.
3 months in the mines, I learned more from the lads that was there. They were the best teachers, they were the best comedians, and I loved going to work. The smartest men ever went down in the mines. If I had my life to live over again, I'd probably do the same thing again. I loved working in the mines.
Miners were all too aware of the dangers. A degree of denial was necessary to keep them going.
You had to be watching yourself all the time. Nearly everything about being down there was dangerous. If you were to think about it when you would be down there and think about what's up over you, you know, you would be a bit nervous for the first couple of weeks. After that, then when there be an accident or something like that, you'd start to be cagey again for a while. You'd soon forget it and off again.
Hazards were ever present, death a real possibility. Miners turned to religion for solace.
It's never a guarantee that you won't come out. So that's why we always say the prayer going into work in the morning, and we'd say the prayer going out to thank God for helping us through our day. We always did that. That was it. We felt to give us some spiritual help.
And it could be 500 men going down at the same time and walking up with the statue in the deer park. They'd all bless themselves. Some of the miners would stay there for 20 minutes at a time, but it would always look up at the sky as much to say, I hope this won't be the last day down here. Going down on their knees, crawling into the cold face like an otter or a beaver, and they'd stay in there for the day. Then on 11:30 they'd get out and have a bite to eat. And this is when the rats would come out. They'd be following and nearly talk to you, and they'd be watching you to leave down your lunch. They'd be watching you to leave down the tea.
Young boys began work by filling skips of coal. They soon graduated to the coal face. Here, men worked in 18-inch tunnels, lying in ice-cold water, cutting and shoveling coal all day.
The rock fall in the coal face was the most dangerous. There was acres and acres of stone above your head. the roof would be very false, and you'd hear the roof squeezing down upon the props, and it'd break like matchsticks, you know. The roof would be creaking like a ship in a harbour.
The fragile ceilings were propped up but could collapse without warning, leaving men trapped under huge boulders.
It was impossible nearly to remove the person from under it sometimes because your hands were caught, you had no hope of helping yourself, you had to depend on somebody else. It's terrible being caught. It was so hurtful to everybody around, and it was so painful, and it was so frightening. Your nerves struck, you would feel it's all over, you know? It was frightening.
It was difficult facing the mine again after a collapse.
It was extremely hard to go back in. What would you back in need? There was no other where to get work in the mine. And you couldn't be seen to be a coward. People would talk about things, so nobody wanted to be seen to be a coward, so you would come back and face the music again and take chances. You'd probably be a lot more careful propping the ceiling, I can assure you, when you come back in and checking it with your hammer, tapping it. Some people would not come back, yeah. They would go to, young people in particular, would leave.
In 1965, Jimmy Lawler was working in Ballingarry with his school friend Jack Shaw.
I got sure he was a grand quiet chap, innocent kind of a chap, yeah. And he was starting to date girls and all this kind of a thing. And so that was the main topic that morning. There was a dance in the village that night, and he had a date with this girl. Little did he know at the time that he'd be missing his date.
Jack Shaw was only 17 years old. He drove the locomotive carrying coal skips up from the mine. Jimmy Lawler and 3 other lads filled the train with coal and waved Jack Shaw away.
He hooked up his little skips of coal and headed off out, and there was 3 or 4 of us walking out the tunnel after him. We found him.
But in the shaft, the loco derailed. It crashed onto a roof support, knocking a huge beam onto Jack Shaw.
Knocked him out of the loco, and he was pulling skips of coal behind him, and they went over him and made bits of him. The lads came in with a priest and a stretcher. I said he was well dead at that time. He got killed at around dinner time on a Saturday, and we carried his coffin up the steps of the church that evening. There was a big dance in the town that night. Jack was supposed to be on a date with a girl, and instead of that, his coffin was in the church.
The sudden death of his friend Jack Shaw was tough on Jimmy.
It had happened so sudden, like we were having a laugh one minute, and the next minute he was dead. But it did play in my mind for a long time, like, you know. We were only young then either, like, you know, 18. It was hard to accept something like that at that age, like, you know.
13 people died in Castlecomer's Deer Park collieries. The last death occurred on Friday, the 1st of April, 1960. Seamus Walsh was 15 at the time and worked with his school friend Ned Kelly.
Ned was such a likeable, quiet lad. You know, everybody loved him. He has a real freckledy face and red hair.
New conveyor belts had been installed to ease the loading, but carried risks.
They were working in a very wet place, and he had a man's coat, and he had this match cord tied around his stomach. The match cord cut and pulled him into the machine. So he was killed straight away, like, you know.
Seamus Walsh was washing off coal dust after his shift when the news of Ned's death filtered through.
All the oil miners were all there getting ready to go home, and other lads were getting ready to go down on the evening shift. And they knew straight away that Ned Kelly was killed. And to see the faces of the miners, I'll never forget as long as I live. And the sorrow and that big hardy men crying.
Seamus raced back to Ned Kelly's mother.
And I said to Mrs. Kelly, Ned was after being killed in the Deer Park. And she looked and thought it was an April Fool joke, like, it was no joke. I'll never forget her screams. Her screams will remain with me forever. Even though she lived to be nearly 80 years of age, I think the day that Ned died, she died too.
Ned Kelly was laid out in his school jersey.
I remember climbing up to the side of the window, a small little window, about 9 inches high, and I looking in at Ned, and he laid out the white sheets over him, and his little red and white jersey, and his little face, and he looking over and saying, "I'm not dead, I'm only asleep."
When Seamus returned to work, he was given Ned Kelly's job of loading the coal onto the same conveyor belt that had killed his friend.
I hated the night shift because I was afraid in the pit now after the death of Ned. He was my friend. To go in the road in the dark with your carbide lamp, and everywhere I looked I could see Ned's face. I really thought he was there.
Many men lost their lives working the coal face of Irish mines, but years on, a more threatening legacy has caught up with them.
There was no fresh air down in the pit. There was no air, in fact. Compressed air was going around in the ring the whole time.
The tunnels were extended with drills and explosives at night.
The gelignite thing, which had burned the chest out here, really, you know. And the conditions were atrocious in it. When you put your hand up in front of you like that with the light on your head, you wouldn't see your hand. The dust would be so thick. And you had no protection from that, you know.
Dust masks were supplied by the mining companies, but few workers used them.
When you breathe in and out, there were little flaps. And the flap used to go down and all the dust used to go up. You know, they were useless.
You could change the filter 5 or 6 times in the shift and you still have dust on your mouth. And you take the old filter out, it to be pure jet black.
The 1965 Mines and Quarries Act introduced mine inspectors.
We knew 2 weeks before the mine inspector came and everything was tied up. Down where the miners were getting out the coal was the most dangerous place on earth. You know, your life could be taken in 2 seconds. But the mine inspectors never went in there.
They should have called a halt to the conditions that men were working in, but they didn't. For some reason or other, I suppose. Money solves a lot of problems, you know.
By the 1960s, Irish coal was becoming more difficult to extract. Cheap oil imports arrived from Europe, making local mines less profitable. The Irish mines closed down one by one. In 1969, 300 years of mining came to a sad end in Castlecomer, County Kilkenny.
As we got word of a Monday that the pit was closing Friday, that was the very same as if a shadow came over Castlecomer. Men with 7 and 8 children, nowhere to go, no work. 600 people were heading for the scrap heap. Because, like, who wants a miner with half his lungs rotted away, you know?
Seamus Walsh joined the long dole queue in Castlecomer.
It was a troubled feeling to have for a fella that was not been working all his life, standing in the street, out of work, no money, begging for a few pence off the government. But the humiliation, I think, that we endured that time was terrible.
What will be your main task this morning?
To produce the coal and sell it for our wages and to prove to the government that this mine is viable.
The Ballingarry mine was haunted by economic problems for years. It finally closed in 1973.
The whole area was devastated when it closed because shopkeepers, they were dependent on the miners.
Okay, it was a shop for a lot of married people. They didn't know, they thought the end of the world was after coming. They didn't know what they'd do or how they'd manage.
Arigna mine closed in 1990 on foot of the ESB power plant shutting down.
The money situation changed dramatically. Like, that was hard to accept, but there was a terrible feeling of hurt and maybe one blaming the other for certain things.
Joe McEnery from Ballingarry felt lucky to get a job as a truck driver, yet his health was faltering and he found it hard to breathe.
As time went on, then I got worse and I found it terrible hard to go up the stairs. I'd be out a window, I'd have to stop, and if I went upstairs or anything.
Ill health forced Joe to give up work. Years of breathing coal dust had ravaged his lungs.
I just keep getting infections all the time. One Sunday, I just gave a cough in the bathroom and couldn't breathe. I got as far as the door and I was going purple. I could barely just breathe and the ambulance was on its way. So I get 4 days in intensive care and I was lucky to make it that day.
Joe's older brother Paddy also suffered lung damage.
He died a horrible death really. He was smothering and smothering for months. You wouldn't put an animal through what he went through.
Many Irish miners have ongoing chest problems. They've been fighting for compensation since the 1970s. The Irish government has stated that as the miners worked for private companies, they're not entitled to state compensation.
A generation of people, we say, from Ballingarry and Kilnall, all died off young in their 50s, 60s. But we work for a privately run operation, so I reckon we weren't entitled to it.
It's just happening really. We worked all our lives. We wound up turning the rubbish heap.
No one knows what the miners went through. And they're going on bending knee now looking for a few pound compensation. And all they're looking for is their basic rights that they should have got in 1970.
Jimmy Lawler emigrated to Britain once the Ballingarry mine shut. He returned in 1982 to raise his children in Ireland.
We made sure that they got their college education because I didn't want to even think that they'd have to go down underground to make their living, you know.
The Deer Park mine shaft is now closed up and covered over by scarred but fertile land. Seamus has written about his time as a Deer Park miner and is a guide at the Castlecomer Discovery Centre. The local graveyard gives testament to the death of countless young miners. The closure of the mines devastated the community, but also brought a bittersweet reality.
It was a blessing in disguise for us, because I suppose if the mines was open now, I wouldn't probably be talking to you here now. I'd be probably up in the hospital, or maybe I'd be shooting up the daisies, you know.
Energy production continues in Arigna. Today there are windmills on the site of the old mines. Peter McNiff held on to his land but no longer farms. He helped open the Arigna mining experience in an effort to keep memories of his fellow miners alive.
It has been terrific success, and people who come and see how we worked, there was never in the mine, they still appreciate that it was a way of life and the coal was needed. This is the only memory of the mines that was there for many hundreds of years.